Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week we're going to be breaking down a guitar solo of mine taken from a video by a very good friend of mine, Mr. Paul Davids. Now, if you've not seen the video, Paul asked for non-metalheads, myself included, to write a metal track. This was my contribution. So, as I say in Paul's video, I'm not a metalhead by any stretch of the imagination. You are more likely to hear me listening to Sam Cooke than you are Slayer, but I guess that's kind of the reason why Paul asked me. And to be honest, one thing that really made me quite nervous actually about contributing to this video was that metal, like a lot of musical genres, simultaneously has very lax and incredibly strict boundaries of where the genre ends. And fans are often quite willing to patrol those boundaries fairly vigorously, and the comments on Paul's video have kind of bore that theory out. I guess depending on your reference point or your age, more likely, metal is either Metallica or it's Machine Head, it's Pantera or it's Periphery, it's Accept or it's Avenged Sevenfold. There really is quite a diverse range within metal as a genre, and those bands wildly vary in sound and in style. Now for me, my reference point of metal has always been Black Sabbath. Yes, I guess it's relatively tame, musically speaking, by today's standards, but if you can imagine hearing War Pigs or NIB back in 1970, there was absolutely nothing like it that had come before, and they very much paved the way of what was to follow, of what we now think of as metal. I went to see Sabbath on their farewell tour in 2018, and aside from being incredible, they really did blow me away. One track which really stuck with me that evening was Sweetleaf, taken from Master of Reality. And I actually did a video last year where I kind of broke down Tony Iommi's guitar tone in that track, so I kind of used the lessons that I'd learned from that video to sort of use as a reference point for this video, and very much dictate the type of track that I was trying to create, hence my use of a Gibson SG, albeit one with humbuckers. Admittedly, the solo was very much less Iommi inspired, but I did try to keep a relatively similar guitar tone from the two rhythm tracks that I'd put down. Again, much like Sweetleaf, a fair amount of top end and fizz, I guess you would call it. Less gain than you might expect, actually, all things considered, but still a pretty throaty guitar sound. In isolation, my solo sounds like this. Now, in regard to the guitar solo, I'm not going to break down each and every individual note in this video. We'd be here an eternity. That's what the tabs are for. They're linked in the description box, as well as the backing track, actually, should you be interested in jamming along. But I did want to give you a bit more of an overview, I guess, of my modus operandi, if nothing else. Some of the thought processes and some of the ideas which went into creating this guitar solo. Let's delve right in. So first things first, good place to start is going to be the first note of the solo, in which case it's a fairly kind of dramatic bend, I guess. Not so much the bend itself, as in the speed that you take to get to your target note. That's where the intensity and the drama lies in this. So we're going to be bending from your 5th fret on your thickest E string. It's worth saying I am down in drop D, for reasons which will become clear in a sec. But we're going to take our time over this bend, which then coupled with the low octave effect I had on the track, as well as a load more gain that I'm going to use in this demonstration, just to make it easier to understand what notes I'm actually playing. It's a fairly dramatic effect. which then, coupled with another effect that I've stolen entirely from Tom Morello, that sort of helicopter on-off tremolo thing that he does with his pickup selector, again increasing in intensity and in speed. The kind of closer you get to your target note, sounds a little bit like this. So if you're wondering what I'm doing on that, by the way, basically turned off my neck pickup, which I'm not using, so the volume for that is full down, and the volume for my bridge pickup, which I am using, is fully up. So if you flick back and forth between the two, you get that effect, which then kind of, not that I'm going to advocate doing that too frequently, because you will no doubt wear out your switch, but for the odd occasion, works particularly well. So we have, again, that increases in speed and intensity the closer you get to that note, pulling off to big open D notes. Now that's the reason I'm down in drop D. No other reason. You might have noticed in the video itself, my string actually popped out of its saddle not too far past that point, so it didn't really make much sense to be in drop D either way, but for that first note there, it was kind of essential. Your next note then is going to be a slide up to your root note on your A string. So again, it's a D, so we've worked our way up an octave there in essence. We've gone from there to there. So we've got that little climb up from your 5th to your 3rd fret, then a bend on your 5th fret of your D string. Almost that little double bend, I guess. Before, all in one kind of fluid motion, moving up to a 10th fret bend, again on your D string. Again, resolving on the octave, so you've worked your way up 3 octaves there. So it's the top 2 notes out of a D power chord, which coupled with that low bass, fairly kind of dramatic way to sort of conclude that first section of the solo. So we have So they're the notes you're actually going to play. So it's a kind of half step bend starting on your 5th fret of your B string. But what I didn't do then, which I do in the track, is this. Little momentary slide starting from your 4th fret on your B string, going up to your 5th. Again, resolving down to octave note. So it's all kind of hinging around your target note, which in this case is very much just going to be the root. That little bounce back and forth. So that, again, kind of stolen from kind of Chuck Berry, Jeff Beck kind of thing, I guess. Again, it's the intensity at which you play it so much as it's the notes themselves. If you just do that, as you would see kind of written down in the tab, you get something like this. Which doesn't sound quite as cool as. Again, the kind of more frantic and the more messy it sounds, almost the more effective it is. So we have. So we've got that fast run there up to that kind of octave thing. Again, I'm not entirely sure what I played there without looking at the tabs. It's just a fast run and it's all based around not so much the notes I play, so much as the kind of rhythm in which I play it and making sure that I am on that beat for that. So again, it's not so much the specific notes, so much as the rhythm in which I play it. But if you do want to learn the actual notes and not just approximation of it, as per this video, as I said, the tabs will be linked below if you want to check that out. So we have something like that. Then again, a fast run up. All the actual notes will be in the tabs, and don't shoot me for not kind of running through them note for note in this video, because I'll only get them wrong. honestly, this stuff is just improvised for the most part, so any kind of specific sections like that, it's not. Again, it's about the kind of rhythm of it and making sure that I hit the kind of notes where I'm aiming for, and not so much the actual notes of which I play. So just take it back a sec. Something like that. And then your last section, it's again the fast sections, I always feel like I gloss over them to an extent, not to kind of put too much emphasis on them, I guess, because they're not the least kind of important part of the solo, I guess, in regards to the specific notes, but it's a kind of motif almost. It's a sort of a mechanism to sort of build tension. It's not so much a case of learn this run or I bet you can't play this run, so much as just something to build the tension and build the drama. But there are 1,000,001 ways of doing that just as effectively, if not more effectively, to be honest. It's probably something I overuse, if anything, but it's just a little mechanism, if nothing else. So working your way up to, again, you may notice, it's that octave note. Again, that in itself is a little motif or a little mechanism which I use, I guess, especially when in this track in particular, we've been relying very heavily on that octave note. Just kind of made sense to sort of keep resolving to that. It works equally as well with the kind of, I don't know, the minor third, the fifth or whatever. If there's a harmony which sort of feels natural to resolve to, obviously in this case where it's in D minor, that could be your F for a minor third. If you kind of kept resolving to that, as long as you do it consistently and you do it in a way which feels deliberate, it kind of makes sense. So we've got that fast run. I think the action needs to come up a little bit on this guitar. It's fretting out very slightly. We've got, I'm not sure what you would call it really. Multi-step bend is something I've kind of called it before, I guess, which sort of describes it relatively well. So we're bending up a full tone before bending up another half tone. If we bring that down for a second to somewhere else on the fretboard where it's a little bit easier to hear or understand, it's this in essence. Something like that to finish, so we've got that bend there. Something like that. Again, it's not so much the specific notes in which I play, apart from that last note, I should say, which is ending on the kind of relevant harmony for that. That was a very deliberate choice, and to be honest, if memory serves, that was something which actually dictated that it took more than 1 or 2 takes because I kept missing that note. But yeah, it's very much about the overall feel of it, and again, it's that sort of tried and tested method of working from low to high. We start with literally about as low as you can get, working up to the kind of very high octave of that. So again, working from low to high is a kind of really nice little tried and tested technique or method for things like this. It tells a story, it builds an arc of progression of the kind of storyline of which you're trying to map out, and just makes sure that within reason everything flows relatively nicely. Again, it's probably something I overuse, but at least in the short term for something like this, which to be honest had to be turned around relatively quickly, it's just a nice little mechanism of just making sure that it all fits together relatively well. There we go. And there you have it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you got something from this video. As I said, the backing tracks and the tabs are linked in the description box below should you want to give it a little bit more of a deep dive or just jam along to my solo. Again, thank you very much to Paul for having me involved in your video. Cheers for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode of Friday Fretworks. Cheers guys, take care, I'll see you soon.